World War II. The name alone conjures images of epic battles, heroic sacrifices, and a world torn apart. We think we know the story. We've seen the movies, read the history books, but what if the story we know isn't the whole story? What if, beneath recorded history, secrets still lie buried and mysteries refuse to stay in the past? These are the tales that keep me up at night. The conflict officially concluded in 1945, but for many, the war never truly ended. It left a legacy of unanswered questions and puzzles with missing pieces that baffle the greatest minds. These aren't academic footnotes. They are chilling tales of missing people, lost treasures, and events that defy logical explanation. Every battlefield, every sunken ship, every forgotten bunker could hold a clue, a discovery that cracks a decades-old secret. Official records tell one version, but the truth is often stranger and more complex than any archive. These mysteries are human stories, filled with intrigue, tragedy, and the possibility of discovery. They are the ultimate cold cases, trails gone cold for generations, yet the desire for answers never fades. So join me as we journey back. We'll peel back history's layers and peer into World War II's shadows. We'll count down 5 perplexing mysteries that haunt historians, treasure hunters, and investigators today. Tales of immense wealth vanished without a trace, aircraft that disappeared from the sky, and secrets taken to the grave. Prepare yourself. We're stepping into the unknown where echoes of the past still call for answers. The expedition begins now. Our countdown begins with a story that sounds like something out of a science fiction movie. The year is 1942. America is reeling from the attack on Pearl Harbor, and fear of a Japanese invasion grips the West Coast. To guard the coastline, the U.S. Navy deploys a fleet of airships to patrol for enemy submarines. On the morning of August 16th, one of these blimps, the L-8, lifted off from Treasure Island for a routine patrol. Lieutenant Ernest Cody, Ensign Charles Adams. The flight started normally, the weather was clear, and the 2 men were in good spirits. A little over an hour into their patrol, they radioed in to report a possible oil slick on the water below. This was the last time anyone would ever hear from them. The L-8 continued its journey, but it began to behave erratically, drifting aimlessly, slowly losing altitude. Fishermen and observers on the ground watched in confusion as the massive airship floated inland, a silent giant with no one at the helm. After several hours of drifting, the L-8 finally came back to Earth, descending slowly, snagging on power lines before gently collapsing onto a street in Daly City. Emergency crews rushed to the scene, expecting the worst. They cut their way into the gondola, bracing for a gruesome discovery, but what they found was even more shocking. Nothing. The 2-man crew had vanished. The cabin was in perfect order, parachutes in racks, confidential papers secure, life raft stowed, engines and fuel looked fine. So, what happened to Lieutenant Cody and Ensign Adams? There were no signs of a struggle. The doors were latched from the inside, suggesting they hadn't been forced open. One theory: a man went out and fell, the other fell, trying to save him. But why no parachutes? Why a secured door? Other theories claim capture by a Japanese submarine, but there's zero evidence. The men, and the truth, vanished into thin air, leaving behind an empty airship and a mystery that endures. Next on our list is a mystery that combines art, war, and the allure of unimaginable treasure. It's the story of the Amber Room, a creation so beautiful it was once called the 8th wonder of the world. Imagine a room where walls are covered in over 6 tons of intricately carved amber panels, backed with gold leaf and studded with precious gems. Created for the Prussian king in the early 1700s, it was later gifted to Russia's Peter the Great, a symbol of alliance and masterpiece of Baroque art. For nearly 2 centuries it dazzled visitors at the Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg. Then, the Nazis came. When Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, the curators knew the Amber Room was in grave danger. They tried to disassemble it, but the ancient amber had become brittle and began to crumble. In desperation, they covered the walls with plain wallpaper, hoping German soldiers would overlook it. But the Nazis were not fools. They knew exactly what they were looking for. They located the room, carefully dismantled the amber panels in just 36 hours, packed them into 27 crates, and shipped them west to Königsberg Castle in East Prussia. For 2 years, the Amber Room was displayed in Königsberg for a select few to admire. But as the tide of war turned, with the Red Army advancing, the room was packed up again in late 1943. And then, it disappeared. Königsberg was heavily bombed in 1944 and captured by the Soviets in 1945. The castle was left a smoldering ruin. In the chaos of war's final days, the 27 crates containing one of the world's greatest art treasures vanished from the face of the earth. This question has fueled countless treasure hunts for 80 years. Some believe the crates were destroyed in bombing raids. Others think it was loaded onto a ship and now lies at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. A more tantalizing theory is that the Nazis successfully hid it in secret mines or bunkers across Central Europe. Reports have pointed to locations in Germany, Poland, the Czech Republic, and even a remote lagoon in Lithuania. But despite decades of searching, not a single panel has ever been found. The Amber Room remains a ghost, a lost masterpiece worth hundreds of millions of dollars, its location one of World War II's most coveted secrets. Some people are so famous, so iconic, that it seems impossible they could just disappear. That's the case with our next mystery, Glenn Miller. In the early 1940s, you couldn't turn on a radio without hearing his music. With hits like In the Mood and Moonlight Serenade, the Glenn Miller Orchestra was the sound of a generation. The king of swing, a musical superstar. But at the height of his career in 1942, Miller decided to enlist in the U.S. Army. He wanted to do his part, modernizing the Army band and entertaining the troops. By 1944, Major Glenn Miller was stationed in England, leading the Army Air Force Band in wildly popular concerts and radio broadcasts. His music was a morale booster, a comforting sound from home. In December 1944, Miller was scheduled to travel from England to newly liberated Paris to arrange for a Christmas concert for the troops there. On December 15th, a cold and foggy day, Miller boarded a small, single-engine C-64 Norseman aircraft at a military airfield near Bedford. He was joined by the pilot and one other passenger. The plane took off, heading out over the English Channel. The small plane never arrived in Paris. It simply vanished. No radio distress call was ever received. No wreckage was ever found. No bodies were ever recovered. The official military report concluded the plane went down over the English Channel due to bad weather and possible mechanical failure. The lost at sea explanation has never fully satisfied everyone. Why was no wreckage ever found? One theory came from an RAF navigator. He believed Miller's plane was accidentally hit by bombs jettisoned by Allied Lancasters returning from an aborted mission. Another theory suggests the plane was mistakenly shot down by friendly fire. And then there are whispers of espionage, that Miller was secretly a spy on a covert mission that went wrong. Without a crash site or physical evidence, all we have is speculation. The final notes of Glenn Miller's life remain unsung, his fate lost somewhere in the fog of war. This mystery is different from the others. It's not about lost treasure or a vanished celebrity, but about a profound betrayal that led to one of history's most heartbreaking tragedies. The story of Anne Frank is known worldwide through her diary. For 2 years, from 1942 to 1944, she and her family, plus 4 other Jewish people, hid in a secret annex behind a bookcase in Amsterdam. Her diary is a testament to hope and resilience, but that voice was silenced. On the morning of August 4, 1944, the secret was broken. A car pulled up to 263 Prinsengracht. It carried Karl Silberbauer and several Dutch security police. They went straight to the bookcase, revealed the hidden door, and stormed the annex. Everyone hiding there was arrested. The 8 residents were deported. Of the 8, only Otto Frank survived. Anne and Margot died of typhus at Bergen-Belsen weeks before liberation. The raid came after a tip. Someone told the Nazis, but who? That question haunted historians, scholars, and Otto Frank. For decades, the primary suspect was Willem van Maren, a warehouse employee who worked below the annex. He was suspected of stealing supplies, investigated twice after the war, but never charged. For a long time he remained the likely, yet unproven culprit. In 2016, the Anne Frank House study cast doubt, suggesting police might have stumbled on the annex while investigating illegal work or ration coupon fraud. In 2022, a cold case team of retired investigators, including an ex-FBI agent, published a book claiming Arnold Vandenberg was the likely betrayer, suggesting he gave up the location to save his family. Historians heavily criticized that conclusion for relying on assumptions and a single piece of anonymous evidence. 80 years later, who made that fateful call, if anyone, remains an open wound, a final tragic mystery in Anne Frank's story. We've arrived at number 1 on our countdown, the Mount Everest of World War II mysteries. This is a story of conquest, plunder, and a treasure so vast it could make the Amber Room look like loose change. It is the legend of Yamashita's gold. The story begins as the Japanese Imperial Army sweeps across Southeast Asia in the early 1940s. China, Korea, the Philippines, Malaysia. They looted them. National treasuries, banks, museums, temples, private homes, taking untold billions of dollars worth of gold bullion, jewels, and priceless artifacts. This immense treasure was gathered under Japanese princes and generals with the goal of shipping it back to Japan to fund the war effort. But as the war progressed, the tide began to turn. Allied forces established a stranglehold on shipping lanes, making it nearly impossible to transport the massive hoard without it being sunk. According to legend, the Japanese High Command made a decision: hide the treasure. The chosen hiding place was the Philippines, a sprawling archipelago with thousands of islands, deep caves, and dense jungles. The man tasked with this undertaking was General Tomoyuki Yamashita, the Tiger of Malaya. Yamashita and his men spent the final years of the war secretly burying the treasure in hundreds of complex, booby-trapped tunnels and underground chambers. To keep locations secret, after each site was completed, the engineers and prisoners who dug the tunnels were sealed inside and left to die, becoming the treasure's first ghostly guardians. After the war, Yamashita was captured, tried for war crimes, and executed in 1946. He supposedly took the secret of the gold to his grave. Did this legendary treasure ever really exist? Or is it just a fantastic myth? This is the billion-dollar question. Skeptics argue there's no credible evidence of such a coordinated operation, dismissing it as folklore. But the believers are just as passionate. They point to tantalizing clues, like the story of Filipino locksmith Rogelio Roxas, who claimed to have found a portion of the treasure in the 1970s, including a golden Buddha statue, only to have it stolen by agents of President Ferdinand Marcos. This incident, and countless stories of secret maps and deathbed confessions, have fueled a feverish and often deadly treasure hunt that continues today. Billions have been spent, and lives have been lost, in the search for a treasure that may or may not be real. From a ghost blimp in the California sky to a mountain of lost gold in the Philippines, these 5 mysteries represent just a fraction of the unanswered questions left behind by World War II. They are the loose threads in the grand tapestry of history, knots that no one has been able to untangle. 80 years have passed. Witnesses have faded away, documents have been lost or destroyed, landscapes have been irrevocably altered. With each passing day, the chances of finding definitive answers grow slimmer. The trails have gone cold, buried under the sediment of time. So why, in 2025, are we still obsessed with secrets from a war that ended 80 years ago? I believe it's because these mysteries are about more than just the events themselves. They're about justice, memory, and our fundamental need to understand the past. For the families of Glenn Miller or the crew of the L-8, a definitive answer would finally bring closure, a final resting place for loved ones lost to the unknown. The search is also about correcting the historical record. Finding the Amber Room wouldn't just be the greatest treasure recovery, it would be the repatriation of a cultural masterpiece stolen by a brutal regime. Uncovering the truth about who betrayed Anne Frank would provide a crucial answer, holding betrayal accountable, even after all this time. These searches are not just about finding things, they are about finding truth. In a world often clouded by disinformation, the pursuit of historical truth feels more important than ever. The allure of adventure is a powerful motivator. The legend of Yamashita's gold has inspired generations of explorers. It represents the ultimate expedition, a quest for a prize almost mythical in scale. It taps into that primal human desire to explore, to follow a map to a hidden X. This search for lost treasure is a search for magic in a world that often feels too mundane, the belief that history hasn't given up all its secrets. Ultimately, we keep searching because these mysteries remind us that history is not finished. It is a living, breathing thing, full of gaps and contradictions. It's a puzzle we are all part of, and each new discovery adds another piece. The search connects us to the people who lived these events. It forces us to walk in their shoes, feel their fear, their hope, their loss. By trying to solve their mysteries, we ensure they are not forgotten. We keep their stories alive, passing them on to the next generation. As we've seen, the echoes of World War II are far from silent. They resonate in the form of these enduring mysteries. The past is never truly past. It's a landscape of shadows and secrets we return to, hoping to see something new in the darkness. These mysteries challenge us to keep looking, to keep questioning, and to never stop exploring. As long as we keep searching, the past will never be truly lost. The expedition is never really over.